The topic of duos in AETHER has changed a lot in the last almost 2 years of duos existing, and a lot of people now highly recommend adding a duo and a duo hindrance to your defense so you can better shield yourself from some really gnarly duo skills. But which duos are the best for defense? And what are some of the duo threats you might see or want to use? Let's keep this intro short and jump into an ordered, kind of, tier list of the duos and harmless I think are the best for both sides of the coin, at least up through Sheeta. Be sure to let me know if you agree or disagree below, and like if you think this was a good video. Subscribe too. Important note for when I talk about the heroes on offense, because of the hindrance building most affecting these units, it's important to note that when I talk about these units, I'm mostly talking about their viability as units. Their dual skills will not decide their placement on a tier. That said, I did actually make a tier specifically for units who, I would say, range from good to mediocre, but have dual skills that make them worth considering. As in, the dual skills are actually good enough to consider them for certain comps, regardless of dual hindrance making them unusable on certain maps. Also, I'm not covering the dancers. I don't need to tell you guys that the dancers are like A to S tier because they can dance while also doing other garbage on top of it. I don't think you guys need to hear why they're good. They're dancers. The sad reality is that in Vault of Heavens, Vantage is mostly dead, and Hector's ability to just be a walking bolt tower sounds really good, but it means that if the foe has a dual hindrance, then you'd be lugging around a one movement armor with a mediocre perf who really is not going to contribute to your match at all. If you are able to use this bolt tower, then you have to act fast, because if they have a healing tower, that can heal off all your units. So if you want to use him nowadays, he's probably going to be like a late game cleanup rather than early game cleanup. It just isn't really worth bringing armor around who can't do much. If you really want to salvage him, near safe is probably his best bet, because near safe is good in anyone. I had a crisis trying to place this dude. I kinda settled for C tier, because while Farsave is good enough to make him a great unit regardless, I think there are just enough better options at this point that I wouldn't really think of him as my first thought for a Farsave unit. So C tier isn't as much him as unit, as much as comparing Farsave on him to Farsave on others. It's kind of weird. My placement on him is probably my worst placement on this list if I had to guess, but if you want to use Farsave, you can use Felix, you can use Winter Cecilia, you can use a +0 Vector, who cares, +0 Henriette. It's not the best use of resources in my opinion, but Marth can use Farsave, and for that, he isn't D tier. Katria's main gimmick is incredibly difficult to use on offense. The triangle attack position in order to engage on a team is far too committal, so sadly you probably shouldn't be using her for that, but she does have her own merits at the very least. Her weapon is still an orders buff, in addition to a slaying effect that's ideal for running a Gale Force set. If you wings her into an ally, she has a pretty good chance to Gale Force and provide a clean return. Her dual skill is alright too, but depending on the situation, might not be ideal to use even if you can. Sometimes you want to take damage from a foe before killing them to enable Wings of Mercy plays, but it's still solid. Overall, she's decent enough despite her ARO shortcomings. Another slaying axe who can make an effective Gale Force. While she has to rely on an auto double as opposed to Katria's high speed, being a Cav makes her a great initiator. I don't think there's too much to say about her. For the most part, she's a premium version of slaying Gale Force Cav. I put her in C, mainly to balance the tier list a bit, and because she's pretty simple, but I consider her to be a pretty solid unit. She's a great unit, but she's much better in Arena and ARD than she is in ARL. You can compare her to Micaiah or Linja, and you could say that she has Windsweep NFU, which makes it really easy to hit foes that aren't going to be able to hit her back. But I think Micaiah's effective damage, as well as Linja's Linja, are just better if you're going to use a range flyer for hit and run. That said, she's a pretty good unit still. Her dual skill giving Desperation can be useful. In fact, you could say that Desperation effect can make her a better support unit than an actual hit and run if you want to use her with like a really fast Brave Bow, but as a unit herself for Arrow, I think there are better options. Damage reduction end turns are all the rage nowadays, and a few duels can run those kinds of sets because they just can. First one up is Alm, who has a weapon that does true damage and true damage reduction, kind of, as well as his legendary version special. Alm's dual skill heals him and removes penalties, so if he's able to use it, it can make tanking a whole team past the first turn quite a bit easier. Erica is slightly unique in that she doesn't come with the DRB skill. Instead, her dual skill grants the DR effect to herself and to allies, and that's pretty neat, especially because that dual skill can give speed-based damage reduction to units who usually can't use it. If you want DR on every map you play, then you will need to exchange that B slot, which is awkward, but she's got her own benefits without DR, such as a slaying perf that heals her and deals true damage, making her a pretty good heal tank too. She's actually a cool unit now that I'm kind of putting this together. Our final damage reduction end turner is unique, as Myr is a flying dragon and not a physical melee infantry. Her DR is also unconditional. As long as it activates, it's always 40%. She's a little bit boring, but regardless, she's still pretty good. Her dual skill can be helpful against certain teams, especially those with bows, since it removes her flying weakness for a turn and also negates the foe's follow-up attacks. I think Myr is still a very solid unit overall. Our very first Harmonic hero is a pretty good hit and run unit. There are very few dagger caps, so being in a limited class helps her stand out. But she has pretty good attack and speed, the ability to run Disarm Trap, and a great weapon that reduces a ton of damage. But you could also opt for other weapons if you don't think the DR is providing much value. She can kill a unit without worrying about a trap, ship down foes, and run something like Fury or abuse her weapon and bring her down under 50% HP and become a Wings of Mercy beacon. I think she's pretty neat for that. Leaf can also be a hit and run unit. He doesn't have Mia's dagger utility, but instead has a very high damaging weapon that grants a free follow-up and helps counter some damage reduction users. It also damages its allies, so if you like self-damage and escape route gimmicks, he could be a lot of fun to use. But even if you don't, he's going to be a very solid, powerful unit that can get in pretty easily and then get back out with a good dance or two. His place will always be defense, and his dual skill is less effective than Hector in my opinion, but he still pulls his weight. Micaiah herself can check armor and cav teams thanks to her weapon, so on that front she's solid. But if you really want to steamroll a team, letting your tank have access to her domination dual skill gives you insane damage output that might punch you through certain units who might survive or give you a devastating double if you can't one-shot. Vantage and Vault of Heaven's tier AR is pretty dead right now, aside from more counterpick strats, so don't expect to turn everyone into Broadleaf and yeet them in for a consistent win, but when she gets the chance, your damage will be hilarious. Ephraim is actually a solid unit, so if he's able to give himself extra movement from his duo, or even his allies extra movement from his duo, then he can become a very strong Gale Force unit or partner. His perf powers through a ton of units, but I actually recommend its Curtains, since that'll be more consistent, with or without his duo skill. However, Raging Leaf being more powerful, and having effectiveness is also really good. Actually, if you don't want to use him for his duo skill, you could consider trying Distant Counter Vantage Raging Leaf, because that could actually give him good matchups and check certain teams, mainly cav teams, so he could do pretty well when dealing with units like Legendary Sigurd. Paula is flying dual Ephraim. Unlike Ephraim, who has a good perf, so he could use that or he could use its Curtains, Paula should probably only use its Curtains. Her perf just is a little too sloppy to use in Aether raids because it requires a specific team comp and it requires spacing, which is difficult to kind of get correctly unless it's like later in turns when most of the team's dead. But besides that, her dual skill gives extra movement. She can pair well with flying allies or anyone who's able to pre-charge her, and she can run its Curtains. Therefore, she's actually not bad when you use her like that. Tiki's only really useful function is her dual skill, giving a free refresh to Arcanine and FE7 units. Her purse sounds cool, but it's no more than an alternate version of a melee blade tone weapon. It's not really useful on offense outside of very niche strategies. So if you use her, you should really only use her for that dual skill. If it weren't for the dual skill, I'd probably consider Tiki a D tier duo. But man, it really comes in handy, especially when Linja is an FE7 unit who can be refreshed by Tiki. Unlike Tiki, Sheeta is a competent unit. Her weapon has a lot of effectiveness on top of a Kanto effect and a pretty neat new skill in Flow Refresh. Of course, that dual skill refreshes a hero's or an Arcanine unit. She becomes a great Gale Force partner who can Gale Force, refresh her friend, then kill someone. Between 2 units, that's 5 potential kills in a turn. Or if you want, make her hit and run by killing a powerful foe, then Kanto or Gale Force back, kinda like Reagan. Overall, she's a cool unit with a great dual skill. Using a dragon armor sounds like a tough chore in AETHER's offense, but Aidu is probably one of the best ones in the game, if not the best. She can go Special Fighter for one-shot special spam, Dragon Ball can give her crazier bulk, and you could probably use her for a Farsafe set, which is going to be really good on her thanks to her incredibly min-max stat line. Plus, she comes with native penalty negation and wary just from her weapon, so she's got all the hallmarks of a good tank unit right there. And if you're able to use your dual skill, being able to negate effectiveness against armor and dragon, even just for one turn, can really make a difference. And even make her a good partner if you want to use her with someone like Fallen Nailguard. So despite her being in a pretty weak class type, she's actually a really good unit that you can definitely consider. Hilda provides a utility similar to Brave Lucina, granting an extra special charge per the foe's attack. This means special spamming can be effective with her, and she's going to grant a clean +6 attack too. Not to mention that native even recovery and the fact she's a healer is incredible utility to have for a tank unit who might be taking a ton of hits from the foe. And if she gets her dual skill off, that's a 3-lane isolation, which could really come in handy if the timing's right. While her effect isn't a full breath like Lancina, she's still a really good support unit. So this dude used to be everywhere for a while. I think a lot of people definitely have a memory of him wiping out one of your defense teams at some point. I know I sure did. But don't be fooled by his age, he's actually still a great unit. While Hindrance can stop him from instant pre-charging, a good ally or something like Time Pulse can set him up anyway, or just using a one-turn cooldown special, such as like Moonbow. Once he gets that special up, he can absolutely bolster his stats and stop foes from following up. He could be a great partner, when possible, for units who want pre-charge for stretch like Gale Force, and could help him thin the opposing team with another tank friend. Don't be afraid to dust him off and give him a few adjustments to help him fit back into your teams. The second most free duo, thanks to Crystal Banner Spark, Altina's new infantry non-mythic status means her DC Brave now can benefit from the powerful Null C skill and mythic buff. Her Vantage dual skill is neat too, but not even necessary, when you can tank her up and turn her into a one-rounding machine, capable of shrugging off most damage. Not much to say, she has raw power, and really good tanking abilities. And if you're sad you missed your chance for the easy Spark, you should build Lilo. All in all, she's important to consider when designing certain team comps. No surprise here, Linja's flying mobility, brave slaying weapon, and her ability to self-Gale Force makes her incredibly versatile and difficult to shut down. You could argue it was her dual skill that made running a Hindrance so meta, and yet she's the most resilient to a Hindrance, thanks to her playstyle encouraging offensive engagement with Dancer allies, meaning she can easily snipe most duels or even the tower itself to give her that movement back. Even if she can't get rid of it, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of hit and run action. Combine the fact that she was both available for free and sparkable, you'll notice she's the most common one too, which only solidifies her at the top here. You must design your defenses with her in mind. Hi guys, thank you for watching my video. I'm recording this outro today. I want to upload this because I forgot to do it, but I decided that I'm gonna do this in 2 parts because I don't want to make like a 30-minute video when I can just do 2 15-ish minute ones. I feel like that's better for both the viewer experience and for my personal experience. Although the second part won't take that long since I have most of the graphics and stuff kind of like laid out and I can just put it all together. I'll look forward to that. Hopefully it'll be done in about a week. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.